She had been putting it off for months. Every time she thought about going to the gynecologist, a wave of nervousness washed over her, and she would find some excuse to delay. Next week, she would tell herself, but somehow the next week never came. Today, however, she could no longer avoid it. She had made the appointment a month ago, and the clinic had been kind enough to squeeze her in on a busy Friday afternoon. The thought of stepping into that office made her stomach twist, but she knew she had to face it. She arrived at the clinic a little early, hoping to gather her courage in the car. Sitting in the driver's seat, she kept adjusting her hair and smoothing down her blouse as if fixing her appearance could somehow make her less anxious. She took deep breaths, reminding herself that this was a normal part of life, something every woman went through, but logic didn't ease her fear. She had always been shy, especially around doctors, and the thought of sitting in a small room with someone examining her made her cheeks burn. Finally, she stepped out of the car and walked toward the entrance. The clinic was clean and modern, with soft colors that were meant to feel welcoming, but she barely noticed them. Her eyes were fixed on the reception desk where a young woman smiled at her. "Good afternoon. Are you here for an appointment?" the receptionist asked politely. "Yes." "Yes, I am," she replied, her voice quieter than she intended. She handed over her ID and insurance card, fumbling slightly as she tried to place them neatly on the counter. The receptionist gave her a reassuring smile and handed her some paperwork. "Please fill these out and the doctor will see you shortly." She nodded and moved to a small seating area, clutching the clipboard against her chest. The chairs were arranged in a neat row, but she found herself sitting at the end away from other patients. A few people were waiting quietly, some scrolling on their phones, others lost in thought. She tried to focus on the papers in her hands, but her thoughts kept wandering. She imagined every possible scenario, some realistic, some absurd, all making her more nervous. Time seemed to stretch as she filled out the forms. Her hand shook slightly as she wrote her personal information. She double-checked everything, afraid she might make a mistake. She felt completely exposed, not just physically, but emotionally. The waiting room felt unusually quiet, the soft hum of the air conditioner and the occasional footsteps in the hallway amplifying her anxiety. Finally, a nurse called her name. "Please follow me," she said kindly. Lily's heart pounded in her chest as she stood up, smoothing her skirt in a futile attempt to compose herself. She followed the nurse down a short hallway, her mind racing. She tried to focus on breathing slowly, reminding herself that this was just a routine checkup, nothing to be scared of. The nurse led her into a small examination room. It was tidy, with medical posters on the walls and a large window letting in natural light. The sight of the equipment made her stomach twist, but she reminded herself that it was all necessary. "The doctor will be in shortly," the nurse said, giving her a reassuring pat on the shoulder before leaving the room. Alone, she sank into the chair, hugging her arms around herself. She looked around the room, noticing small details she hadn't before. The way the sunlight reflected off the metal instruments, the soft hum of the machines, the stack of magazines on a small table in the corner. Everything felt so clinical, so real. Her mind raced with a mix of curiosity and fear, wondering what it would be like to sit face to face with the doctor. Minutes passed, feeling like hours. She could hear footsteps outside and imagined all kinds of scenarios about who might walk in. Then the door opened gently and he entered. She caught her breath without realizing it. He was young, perhaps in his early 30s, with a calm and confident presence that immediately made her feel slightly less tense. His hair was neatly combed and he wore a crisp white coat. What struck her most, though, was the warmth in his eyes. There was nothing intimidating or cold about him, which made her realize she had been bracing herself for the wrong kind of encounter all along. "Hello, I'm Dr. Hale," he said, with a friendly smile. "You must be here for your checkup. Please take a seat." His voice was calm and soothing, and for the first time that afternoon she felt a small spark of relief. She nodded, fumbling with her bag as she tried to sit properly. "Yes, thank you," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. He pulled up a chair and sat down slightly across from her, not hovering but close enough to engage her in conversation. "I know these visits can be a little nerve-wracking," he said gently. "Would you like to tell me if there's anything in particular worrying you today?" She hesitated, unsure whether to speak or stay silent. Finally, she found her voice. I've just always been nervous about this," she admitted. "I feel shy, I guess. I've put it off for a long time. Dr. Hale nodded understandingly. That's completely normal, he said. Many women feel the same way. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. We can take it step by step at a pace that's comfortable for you. His words were simple, but they carried a sincerity that made her feel safer than she had expected. She realized that part of her anxiety came from imagining the worst possible scenarios. Hearing someone acknowledge her fear without judgment gave her a sense of control she hadn't felt before. As they talked, she noticed other things about him, how attentive he was, the way he maintained eye contact without staring, the way his voice never rushed her. There was a calm confidence in the way he moved and spoke, yet he wasn't imposing. Somehow she felt like she could breathe again. Then, almost without realizing it, the conversation drifted to more casual topics. He asked about her job, her hobbies, the little things she liked to do in her free time. She found herself smiling, sharing details she wouldn't have imagined sharing with a stranger. There was a lightness to the interaction, a human connection that made her forget for a moment why she had been so scared. She glanced at the clock on the wall and realized that 10 minutes had passed, yet she felt calmer than she had in weeks. The room no longer felt intimidating. It felt manageable. The thought came to her that maybe this visit wouldn't be so terrible after all. When he finally prepared for the examination, he explained each step carefully, making sure she understood what would happen. He never rushed her and encouraged her to speak up if she felt uncomfortable. His professionalism, combined with his gentle manner, made her trust him instantly. The fear she had carried for months began to fade, replaced by a cautious confidence. After the checkup, he gave her clear advice and answered all her questions patiently. "You're doing great," he said, smiling. "It's normal to feel nervous, but you handled it very well." His words made her heart lift. She realized that her fear hadn't vanished entirely, but facing it with someone kind had made all the difference. She left the room feeling a mix of relief and surprise. Relief that the appointment was over, but surprise at how comfortable she had felt despite her shyness. She found herself thinking about him, not in a romantic way, but with admiration for how he handled himself and for the kindness he had shown her. As she walked out of the clinic, the sunlight felt warmer, the air lighter. The experience, which had loomed over her for months, now felt like a small victory. She had faced something she had been avoiding for too long, and she had done it with courage. She didn't know it yet, but this encounter would linger in her mind for a long time. Not just because of the routine checkup she had finally completed, but because of the man she had met, the young doctor whose presence had turned a scary experience into something unexpectedly positive. There was a subtle feeling, a quiet curiosity about him that made her wonder more than she wanted to admit. For now, she walked back to her car, feeling lighter than she had in weeks. She promised herself she wouldn't avoid such appointments anymore. And somewhere deep down, she knew that this was just the beginning of a story she hadn't yet imagined. After her appointment, Lily tried to push the encounter from her mind, but she couldn't. It wasn't just the relief of finally facing something she had feared for months. It was the way the doctor had made her feel comfortable. His calm voice, the way he explained every step, the little smile that appeared when she asked a question, it all lingered in her thoughts. She walked to her car slowly, almost hoping for a chance to see him again, though she immediately scolded herself for thinking such a thing. The next morning, Lily couldn't focus on her usual routine. Every time she brewed her coffee or checked her messages, her mind wandered back to the clinic. She thought about the way he had listened to her, without judgment or impatience. There was something unusual about him, something beyond the white coat and the professional demeanor. She shook her head, trying to convince herself that it was ridiculous to feel this way. He was just a doctor doing his job. Later that day, while walking through the city to run some errands, she passed the clinic again. Her eyes unconsciously drifted toward the window where she had last seen him. That was when she noticed a sleek black car parked in front, shining under the morning sun. It wasn't just any car. It was the kind of car she had only ever seen in magazines or in movies about wealthy people. The kind of car that turned heads wherever it went. Her curiosity piqued. Lily lingered near the clinic entrance, pretending to check her phone. She watched as he stepped out, holding a few papers and walking toward the car. She didn't want to stare, yet her eyes couldn't help following him. He moved with a quiet confidence, his posture straight, the ease in his steps marking him as someone used to attention, though he carried it without arrogance. When he opened the car door, she caught a glimpse of a shiny, expensive interior that confirmed what she had started to suspect. It was odd for her. A doctor, young and approachable, driving a car like that. She had always imagined millionaires as distant, untouchable people. Always in meetings, always busy, rarely approachable. Yet here was someone entirely different. He had spent time with her, made her feel comfortable, treated her like a person rather than a patient. And somehow, knowing he might be rich didn't diminish that feeling. It made it more surprising, almost unreal. Days went by and Lily couldn't stop thinking about him. Every time she walked past the clinic, her pace slowed. Every time she saw a black luxury car, her mind wandered to the young doctor. She wondered what it was like to balance two worlds. The medical world with its stress and responsibility, and the world of wealth and business, where everything seemed fast and unforgiving. How could someone navigate both and still remain so grounded and kind? A week later, she found herself back at the clinic, but this time not for an appointment. She had to deliver some forms she had forgotten, and the receptionist was kind enough to let her leave them at the desk without waiting. As she walked out, she spotted him again in the hallway, speaking with another patient. He didn't notice her at first, but when their eyes met, he gave a small, polite nod. That simple gesture made her heart lift, not with expectation, but with a sense of recognition, like a stranger who had left an impression and now remembered her presence. She couldn't explain it. She had barely spoken more than a few sentences with him, yet there was a sense of connection, something in the way he interacted with people. Warm, patient, genuinely attentive, made her want to know more, though she reminded herself to stay grounded. It was unusual to feel drawn to someone in such a professional setting, but she allowed herself the curiosity without crossing any boundaries. The next time they met in the hallway, she noticed more details she hadn't before. The subtle way he smiled at the receptionist, the gentle way he spoke to patients, the way he paused to make sure everyone understood what he was saying. There was a quiet authority in his presence, not the kind that demanded attention, but the kind that naturally drew it. She realized it wasn't just the wealth or the looks that intrigued her. It was the authenticity in his manner, the way he carried himself without pretense. One afternoon, curiosity got the better of her. She had some questions about a follow-up test and decided to call the clinic. The receptionist answered and, noticing her hesitation, asked if she would like to speak directly with the doctor. She agreed, trying to keep her voice steady. When Dr. Hale came on the line, his calm voice made her relax instantly. He answered her questions thoroughly, explaining every detail without making her feel rushed or foolish. During the conversation, she couldn't help but notice the hints of his other life. There were references to investments, to projects outside the clinic, brief mentions of conferences and meetings that didn't seem medical. She wasn't sure if she was imagining it, but there was a sophistication in his language, a worldly quality that contrasted with the approachable warmth she had first encountered. By the end of the call, she felt a mixture of admiration and surprise. How could someone balance all of this and still remain so attentive to a patient? That evening, Lily found herself telling a close friend about the experience. She described his kindness, the way he made her feel at ease, and the subtle hints that suggested he was more than just a regular doctor. Her friend laughed softly. "You mean he's probably a millionaire doctor or something?" she teased. Lily blushed and shook her head. "I don't know for sure, but there's something different about him." "I can't explain it." Her friend smiled knowingly. "Sometimes the most unexpected people have the most interesting lives. Maybe you're just noticing it because he treated you like a person, not just another patient." Lily nodded thoughtfully. She knew her friend was right. There was more to him than she could see at first glance. But what mattered most was how he made her feel safe, heard and respected. Over the next few weeks, Lily continued her routine checkups and follow-ups. Each visit was a little less nerve-wracking, and each encounter with him felt more natural. She started noticing small details that made her smile, a brief joke he made, a kind word, the way he remembered something personal she had mentioned before. Slowly, her fear transformed into respect and a quiet fascination. One day, after a routine checkup, she accidentally overheard a conversation he was having with a colleague. Phrases like investment meeting, board approval, and portfolio strategy floated to her ears. Her curiosity spiked. It confirmed what she had begun to suspect: there was more to him than just medicine. She couldn't help but feel a mixture of awe and disbelief. How could someone be so wealthy, successful, and still approachable? Still genuinely kind to people in their care? She left the clinic that day feeling inspired. The young doctor had shown her that life could be complex, layered, and still compassionate. That wealth and success didn't have to change a person's character. And though she had come to the clinic initially out of necessity, she found herself returning, not just for her health but for the subtle lessons she learned from observing him, about patience, empathy, and quiet confidence. That evening, she reflected on the past few weeks. She realized that her visits had become more than medical appointments. They were small windows into a life she had never imagined. She had seen the intersection of professionalism and personal depth, of success and humanity, and it left her feeling both humble and inspired. As she drifted off to sleep that night, she thought about him again, not as a crush or infatuation, but as someone who had quietly changed her perspective. She had faced her fears, but she had also encountered someone who reminded her that people could surprise you, that kindness could coexist with success, and that life often had unexpected stories hidden beneath ordinary appearances. Little did she know, her curiosity and fascination were only the beginning. The story of the young millionaire doctor and the shy girl had only just started to unfold, and the surprises yet to come would challenge her perceptions even further. It was a quiet Thursday morning when Lily found herself back at the clinic. She had been careful not to overthink her visits, but something about that day made her heart beat a little faster. She had an appointment for a routine check, nothing urgent. Yet the thought of seeing him again brought a strange mix of nerves and anticipation. As she walked through the hallway, she noticed him already at his desk reviewing some papers. The sunlight from the window fell on his face, highlighting the calm focus in his eyes. He looked up and smiled as he saw her, and the simple gesture made her cheeks warm. "Good morning," he said softly, his voice steady yet welcoming. "Good morning," she replied, her voice slightly trembling despite her efforts to sound confident. He gestured toward the chair. "Please have a seat. We'll start shortly." While waiting, Lily glanced around the room, her attention divided between the familiar instruments and the curious thoughts swirling in her mind. She had spent the last few weeks thinking about him, trying to piece together the life of someone who seemed to straddle two very different worlds, the world of medicine and the world of wealth. There had been subtle hints before, but today, something in the air made her feel that she was about to discover more. When he called her in, the usual routine began. He explained each step, ensuring she was comfortable as he always did. Lily appreciated the care he showed, the patience that made her feel safe. But there was a quiet tension beneath the surface, a feeling that today's visit was not entirely ordinary. After the checkup, as she was gathering her things, he looked at her with a thoughtful expression. "You know," he began, leaning slightly forward, "you're very perceptive. I notice you pick up on things most people wouldn't." Lily hesitated, unsure how to respond. I guess I notice details," she said cautiously, feeling her curiosity tugging at her. He smiled, but this time it was different. Not just gentle, but with a spark of something she hadn't seen before. "I suppose there's no harm in being honest," he said. "You're probably wondering about more than just your checkup, aren't you?" Her heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected him to acknowledge what she had been thinking. She kept her gaze down, fiddling with her bag, feeling a rush of nervous excitement. I just noticed some things. It's nothing, really," she murmured. He chuckled softly. "I can see that you're curious. Very well, then. I suppose it's time I stopped hiding a part of my life from you." Her eyes widened. "Hiding?" she asked, surprised. "Yes," he said. "I'm a doctor, as you know. But I'm also involved in other ventures, business ventures that have been quite successful. I've invested in companies and projects outside of medicine, and it has allowed me to build, well, let's say a comfortable life." Lily stared at him, trying to process the words. Her mind raced. "A millionaire?" He was young, dedicated, and wealthy. She could barely believe it. All the hints she had noticed, the sleek car, the professional confidence, the brief mentions of meetings, now made sense. Yet she found it difficult to reconcile the warm, empathetic doctor with the image of a millionaire. He must have noticed her shock, because he smiled gently. I know it sounds surprising, he said. Most people wouldn't expect someone in my profession to be, well, in this position, but it hasn't changed who I am. I still value the same things, helping people, connecting with them, and treating everyone with respect. That's the part that matters most to me. Lily took a deep breath, trying to calm the whirlwind of thoughts in her mind. She realized that this revelation didn't make her feel intimidated. If anything, it made her admiration grow. Here was someone who had achieved financial success without losing his humanity. Someone who could balance two worlds that seemed incompatible. I didn't know, she said finally, her voice quiet but sincere. I thought, it's surprising, but in a good way. You're still the same person I met weeks ago. You're kind and patient, he nodded, appreciating her words. Thank you. That means a lot. Many people assume wealth changes someone, but it doesn't have to. I've always believed that empathy and understanding are more important than the number in your bank account. For a moment, they sat in silence, a comfortable pause filled with mutual understanding. Lily realized that she was not just intrigued by his success, but also by the way he remained grounded, the way he treated her as an individual rather than a patient or a stranger. It was rare, and she felt grateful for the experience. Curiosity bubbled up again, and she dared to ask, How did you get to this point so young? It's impressive. He leaned back slightly, thoughtful. It hasn't been easy, he admitted. I started with small investments during my college years, learning about business and technology alongside my medical studies. There were failures, risks, and a lot of late nights, but I was determined to create opportunities for myself, to have the freedom to live life on my terms while still helping others through my profession. She listened, fascinated. The picture of him that was forming in her mind was more complex and human than she could have imagined. He was not just a doctor or a millionaire. He was a person who had worked hard, taken risks, and managed to maintain his values through it all. And yet, he added with a soft smile, no amount of success replaces the small, meaningful moments, like helping someone overcome their fear or seeing a patient leave feeling reassured. Those moments, they matter more than any balance sheet. Lily felt a warmth in her chest. She realized that this was why she had felt such a strong connection to him from the very first visit. It wasn't about the wealth or the accomplishments. It was about the integrity, the compassion, and the authenticity he carried with him every day. The conversation shifted naturally to lighter topics. They talked about books they enjoyed, the challenges of balancing work and personal life, and the simple joys of quiet mornings or small acts of kindness. Lily felt herself relaxing, laughing softly at a joke he made about trying to cook and ending up with a kitchen disaster. It was strange and wonderful to see this side of him, someone so accomplished yet so down to earth. Eventually, it was time for her to leave. As she gathered her things, she felt a subtle sense of awe mixed with comfort. She had met someone extraordinary, yet he hadn't made her feel small or unworthy. On the contrary, he had treated her as an equal, someone whose thoughts and feelings mattered. Before she could step out, he spoke again, his tone casual but meaningful. I'm glad you came today. Curiosity's a good thing. It keeps life interesting. And sometimes it brings you to surprising discoveries, doesn't it? Lily nodded, smiling softly. Yes, it's surprising but good. Very good. As she walked toward her car, her mind replayed the conversation. She thought about the path he had taken, the risks he had faced, and the way he had managed to stay true to himself. She realized that meeting him had shifted something in her, a new understanding that people could be complex, layered, and still genuine. That success didn't have to erase kindness, and that curiosity could lead to moments of inspiration. That evening, she sat by her window, reflecting on the day. She thought about the luxury car she had glimpsed before, the confident yet gentle presence of the doctor, and the revelation that had left her both amazed and inspired. She realized that life was full of unexpected stories, hidden beneath ordinary appearances, waiting to surprise those who paid attention. She also acknowledged a quiet truth about herself. She had always been shy, cautious, hesitant to explore the unknown. But meeting him, witnessing his journey and seeing the person he had become showed her that courage could take many forms. It wasn't just about facing fears, it was about embracing curiosity, being open to surprises, and allowing oneself to see the depth in people and life itself. For the first time in weeks, she felt a spark of excitement, not fear, not anxiety, but a gentle anticipation for what the future might hold. She didn't know where these thoughts would lead her, but she felt ready to explore them with a sense of openness and wonder. Little did she know, this revelation was only the beginning. The layers of his life and the subtle connections forming between them would unfold in ways she hadn't imagined. Each visit, each conversation would reveal more about him and about herself, building a story that was as surprising as it was human. That night, as she drifted into sleep, Lily felt a quiet sense of gratitude. For the courage to face her fears, for the lessons hidden in everyday encounters, and for the unexpected discovery of someone extraordinary who had shown her that life could be full of wonder and depth, even in the most ordinary places. A few days after learning about the doctor's surprising success, Lily found herself thinking about him more often than she expected. Not in a romantic way, but with a quiet fascination. She wondered how someone could balance such a high-pressure career with business ventures that demanded so much attention. Yet, despite all that, he remained calm, empathetic, and genuinely interested in the people around him. That morning, Lily had another appointment, a routine follow-up. She arrived slightly early, giving herself time to calm her nerves. The clinic was quieter than usual, and she took a seat in the waiting area, fidgeting with the strap of her bag. She noticed the sunlight streaming through the windows and the soft hum of the air conditioning. It was a small detail, but it made the sterile clinic feel a little less intimidating. When he appeared in the hallway, her heart gave a subtle lift. He smiled, noticing her earlier arrival. "Good morning," he said warmly. "You're a little early today. I wanted to get here before the rush," she replied, feeling slightly flustered under his gaze. "That's thoughtful of you," he said. "Shall we get started?" As they walked together to the examination room, Lily noticed how natural his presence felt. He wasn't just confident in his work, he had a calm energy that seemed to make people around him feel safe. She realized that part of the reason she felt at ease in his presence wasn't just because of his kindness, but also because he exuded a quiet strength. The routine checkup began as usual. He explained each step with patience, asking if she was comfortable and giving her space when she needed it. Lily felt herself relaxing more than ever before. This time there were no lingering fears or anxious thoughts. The visit felt almost ordinary in the best way possible, comfortable, professional, and calm. After the checkup, he gestured toward the chair across from his desk. "Would you like to sit for a moment?" "I know sometimes patients have questions after appointments." Lily hesitated, then nodded. She sat down, feeling slightly awkward but also curious. I actually do have some questions," she admitted. "Not just about the checkup, but about how you balance everything. How do you manage your time between medicine and your business ventures?" He chuckled softly. "It's not always easy," he said. "There are days when it feels overwhelming, but I've learned to prioritize what's important and to delegate tasks when necessary. And I've realized that taking care of myself and others is always the foundation. Without that, nothing else works as well." She listened intently, fascinated by the insight. It wasn't just the wealth or the success that impressed her. It was the way he spoke about responsibility, empathy, and balance. His words had a weight to them, as if they came from experience rather than theory. Lily found herself asking more questions, not just about his work, but about his life philosophy. He spoke about learning from mistakes, about staying grounded despite success, and about the small joys that made life meaningful. There was no arrogance, no need to impress. He simply shared his perspective, and she found herself absorbing it with genuine interest. After a pause, he asked gently, "And you? How do you manage your life? You seem thoughtful and careful, but also curious. That combination is rare." She laughed softly, a little embarrassed. "I don't know if I manage very well," she admitted. "I've always been shy, hesitant to take risks. But I try to face challenges when I can, like coming here, for example. It was nerve-wracking, but I did it." He smiled warmly. "And you did well. That courage, even in small steps, is important. Facing fears in everyday life can teach us more than avoiding them ever could." For a while, they simply talked. Not about appointments or business ventures, but about books they loved, the quiet moments they cherished, and the small lessons life offered each day. Lily felt a connection that went beyond patient and doctor. It was human, genuine, and rare. At one point, he shared a story about a patient who had taught him something unexpected. "Sometimes," he said thoughtfully, "the smallest encounters leave the biggest impact. Helping someone feel heard, Giving them a little reassurance can be more powerful than any achievement. Lily nodded, understanding more deeply than ever why she had been drawn to him. It wasn't the luxury car, the wealth, or the impressive resume. It was the way he valued people, their feelings, and the quiet moments that made life meaningful. As the conversation continued, Lily began to feel more comfortable sharing her own thoughts and experiences. She spoke about her shy nature, her small victories in facing fears, and the moments that had taught her resilience. He listened with genuine interest, never interrupting, never judging. In that room, she felt seen in a way she rarely experienced. When the appointment was nearing its end, he looked at her with a thoughtful expression. "You know," he said, "these conversations are valuable, not just for you but for me as well. They remind me why I do what I do and why connecting with people is important, no matter how busy life gets." She smiled softly, touched by the sincerity in his words. I feel the same," she admitted. "Talking like this, it's rare. It's meaningful," he nodded. "It is, and it's a reminder that life isn't just about success or status. It's about understanding, empathy, and the connections we make. That's what truly matters." As she prepared to leave, he added casually, yet with a warmth that lingered, "I hope you continue to face your fears, embrace curiosity, and find inspiration in unexpected places. Life has a way of surprising us when we least expect it." Walking back to her car, Lily felt a quiet sense of clarity. She realized that her visits to the clinic had become more than medical appointments. They were opportunities to witness a person's integrity, kindness, and resilience. She had learned lessons about courage, empathy, and balance, all from someone who had achieved remarkable success without losing sight of what truly mattered. Over the next few days, she found herself reflecting on the conversation constantly. She thought about how rare it was to meet someone so accomplished yet so human. She thought about her own life, the small fears she had been carrying, and the ways she could approach challenges with more confidence. The experience had changed her perspective, not in a dramatic way, but in subtle, profound ways that lingered in her mind. One afternoon, she was walking through the city when she saw him again, not at the clinic, but stepping out of a building in a nearby neighborhood. She noticed the quiet confidence in his movements, the ease with which he carried himself. For a moment, she felt a wave of admiration and respect. Here was someone who had built a life of success, yet remained approachable, grounded, and human. She continued her walk, reflecting on the lessons she had learned. She realized that her encounters with him had inspired her to face her own fears, embrace curiosity, and pay attention to the meaningful moments in life. She understood that wealth and success did not define a person. Character, empathy, and authenticity did. That evening, she sat by her window thinking about the journey so far. She thought about the shy girl who had once dreaded visiting the clinic and the small steps she had taken to overcome fear. She thought about the young doctor who had shown her that success and humanity could coexist, and how his presence had left a lasting impression. She felt a quiet excitement for the future, a sense that life was full of unexpected stories and lessons waiting to be discovered. She knew that her experiences at the clinic had opened a door to something new, not just about the people she met, but about herself. She had learned that courage, curiosity, and empathy were valuable traits, and that life often rewarded those who embraced them. As she drifted off to sleep, she felt a sense of gratitude for the lessons learned, the courage she had found within herself, and the unexpected connection with someone who had reminded her that life was as much about humanity as it was about achievement. She didn't know what the future held, but she felt ready to face it with an open heart, a curious mind, and the understanding that small moments could have a profound impact. Little did she know, the next phase of this story would bring even deeper insights, unexpected challenges, and moments that would test her understanding of courage, empathy, and the surprising ways people could influence one another. She felt prepared not because she had all the answers, but because she had learned to approach life with awareness, openness, and a willingness to be present. Her journey with the young doctor had become more than routine checkups. It had become a journey of discovery, about life, about people, and about herself. And she felt a quiet thrill at the thought of what might come next, knowing that the most meaningful stories often unfolded in the places we least expected. It was a crisp, sunny morning when Lily found herself walking to the clinic once again. The days had grown shorter, but the warmth of the sun on her skin made her feel lighter than she had in months. She had been thinking about the young doctor often, not with expectation or worry, but with a quiet curiosity about what life could teach her next. Their conversations, small yet meaningful, had opened her eyes to courage, patience, and the unexpected ways people could inspire one another. As she entered the clinic, she noticed the familiar calmness of the waiting room, the soft hum of the air conditioner, the neat rows of chairs, and the muted colors of the walls were all comforting. For the first time, she didn't feel anxious. She was present, aware, and ready to embrace the day's experience. When he appeared in the hallway, she smiled without thinking. He returned the gesture with the same warm calmness that had always made her feel at ease. "Good morning," he said. "How have you been since our last visit?" "I've been good," she replied, her voice steady. "I've been thinking a lot about what we talked about facing fears, curiosity, and balance." He nodded, a faint smile playing at the corners of his lips. "I'm glad. Those reflections are important. Life is full of lessons, some big and obvious, some small and subtle. It seems you've been noticing them." As she sat down for the routine checkup, Lily felt an unusual sense of calm. The usual nervousness she had carried for months had almost disappeared. She realized that it wasn't the checkup itself that mattered most anymore. It was the trust she had built, the understanding she had gained, and the awareness that life's ordinary moments could hold extraordinary insights. After the examination, he gestured toward the chair across from his desk. "Would you like to sit for a moment? We can talk before you leave." Lily nodded. She felt curious more than ever to hear his thoughts. "Over the past few weeks," he began, "I've noticed something about you. You're cautious, thoughtful, and shy, yet you face challenges in a quiet, steady way. It's admirable. Many people overlook the power of small, consistent courage, but you've shown it in abundance." She felt a warmth in her chest. It was unusual to be recognized for something so personal, something internal rather than visible. "Thank you," she said softly. "It's encouraging to hear that. I've been learning to face things I avoided for a long time. Even coming here was a step forward." He leaned back slightly, thoughtful. "That's exactly it. Life isn't about leaps and dramatic changes. It's about the small, steady steps that build confidence and resilience, and you've taken many of those steps without even realizing it." For a while they sat in silence, the quiet of the office surrounding them. It was a peaceful pause, one that carried understanding and mutual respect. Lily reflected on the journey she had been through. The nervous walks to the clinic, the hesitant conversations, and the growing awareness of her own strength. She realized that the young doctor had played a part in that, not intentionally, but through his patience, kindness, and genuine presence. Then he spoke again, his tone soft but deliberate. "I'd like to share something more with you, not just about my professional life, but about what I've come to understand in my personal journey. Wealth, success, and recognition are temporary. What lasts are the moments when we connect, when we show empathy, when we leave a positive impact on someone's life. That is true wealth." Lily listened, captivated. She had already seen glimpses of this truth in his actions, but hearing him articulate it reinforced the lessons she had been learning. "I understand," she said quietly. "I've realized that too. The small things. They make a difference," he smiled, a soft, knowing expression. "Exactly. And it's rare to find someone who notices, who values those moments. You do. And it's why our conversations have been meaningful. Not because of my success or my status, but because you see people, not just roles or appearances." The sincerity in his voice made her pause. She felt a sense of clarity, an understanding that life's true significance was often hidden in ordinary moments, in acts of patience and kindness, in connections that might seem small, but were profound. As they continued talking, the conversation turned to dreams, hopes, and the lessons life had taught them both. She shared moments when she had stepped out of her comfort zone, the small victories she had celebrated, and the fears she was still learning to face. He listened attentively, offering encouragement and insights that were thoughtful, not patronizing. He spoke about the challenges of balancing two worlds, medicine and business, and how he had learned to value integrity and empathy over appearances or superficial success. He shared stories of mistakes he had made, lessons learned the hard way, and the importance of humility even amidst achievements. Lily found herself inspired not just by his success, but by his humanity. The way he approached life, handled responsibility, and treated others with respect was a lesson in itself. She realized that meeting him had changed her perspective, not through dramatic gestures but through consistent actions and genuine character. Before she left, he looked at her with a thoughtful expression. "I hope you continue to face your fears, embrace curiosity, and live with awareness," he said. "You've shown remarkable growth already, and I have no doubt you'll continue to do so." She smiled, feeling a quiet sense of gratitude. "Thank you. I've learned a lot. More than I expected, and in ways I didn't anticipate. Meeting you has been enlightening." He nodded, a subtle warmth in his eyes. "And you've reminded me that despite busy schedules, success, or responsibilities, the simplest moments, like meaningful conversations, remain the most important." Walking back to her car, Lily felt a sense of completeness. The shy girl who had once feared this routine appointment had grown in ways she hadn't anticipated. She had learned courage, patience, empathy, and the value of curiosity. She had discovered that life could surprise her with lessons hidden in ordinary encounters, and that people often carried depth and complexity far beyond initial appearances. That afternoon, as she sat in her apartment reflecting on the journey, she realized that the encounter with the young doctor had been life-changing. It wasn't about wealth, looks, or even professional success. It was about the quiet, human lessons, the way he had shown patience, understanding, and kindness. It was about courage in small steps, the power of curiosity, and the awareness that meaningful connections could change perspectives. Over the next days, weeks, and months, Lily carried those lessons with her. She faced challenges with more confidence, approached new experiences with curiosity, and became more attentive to the people around her. She noticed the small things, the subtle acts of kindness, and the value of patience in everyday life. The young doctor, too, left a lasting impression, not because of the wealth or achievements she had learned about, but because of the humanity he demonstrated consistently. He reminded her that life was richer when approached with empathy and understanding, that success was not only measured in accomplishments, but also in the positive impact one had on others. One evening, she found herself walking through a quiet park, reflecting on the lessons she had learned. The world seemed larger, fuller, and more meaningful. She realized that life was a series of moments, some ordinary, some extraordinary, and that true fulfillment came from awareness, empathy, and the courage to face fears, no matter how small. Her experience at the clinic had been a starting point, a catalyst for personal growth. The nervous visits, the quiet conversations, and the revelations about the young doctor had all contributed to a new understanding of herself and the world. She felt empowered, inspired, and ready to embrace the unknown with curiosity and grace. As she returned home, Lily felt a quiet gratitude. Gratitude for the encounters that challenged her, for the patience and kindness she had witnessed, and for the realization that people often carried hidden depths and lessons waiting to be discovered. The shy girl who had once dreaded a routine checkup had grown into someone more aware, confident, and open to the lessons life had to offer. And somewhere, in the background of her reflections, she smiled at the memory of the young doctor, the calm, patient, empathetic presence that had quietly guided her through fear, curiosity, and understanding. She knew that the impact of this connection would remain with her, a reminder that life's most meaningful lessons often came from ordinary encounters with extraordinary people. That day, she understood something fundamental. Courage was not the absence of fear. Curiosity was not the absence of caution, and success was not measured by wealth alone. True richness lay in connection, empathy, and the quiet courage to engage with the world fully. She had learned this through her journey, through the presence of someone who embodied it effortlessly. As she drifted off to sleep that night, a sense of peace settled over her. Life had taught her something profound, not through dramatic events or sweeping changes, but through steady, quiet lessons embedded in ordinary moments. And she knew that moving forward, she would carry these lessons with her, living with courage, curiosity, empathy, and an awareness of the extraordinary in the ordinary.